Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Live It Up, Home Edition. This is the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life that really feels good because, after all, that's what we're after. We want to feel good. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Amy is out today, so we're going to take the opportunity to have an interview with somebody that has really caught my attention. His name is Douglas Poole. He's a farmer up in Waterville, but he's doing something revolutionary, and I do mean revolutionary. Today, we're talking about regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture caught my attention when I watched a movie recently called Kiss the Ground. I highly recommend it. We're not going to take time to answer any emails today because I want to get straight to the interview and allow enough time for that. So without further ado, here we go. All right, and Douglas Poole, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking some time with us today.
Well, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, all right. As I mentioned earlier, always love to start the show with what's working well, what's feeling good. So what can you share with us? What's a win, or where are you noticing life working out for you?
Well, I'd have to say for a farmer, or again, me personally, springtime's wonderful. With the snow covers gone off. And in fact, in this case, we finally had snow. And so that was a win all winter. We were covered up pretty well. And now just seeing everything come out from under that snow cover and trying to figure out if it's alive or what it's going to do. And so far, everything looks really good. Really happy. So
Good. Right on. I definitely can appreciate that.
Imagine a farmer goes right to weather.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good. So I'm excited about our conversation today because I'm relatively new to this concept of regenerative agriculture. You probably have heard or maybe seen the movie Kiss the Ground, and that was my first introduction to it. And before having seen that, my mindset really was, or my belief really was that, oh, shoot, we're pretty much doomed. Like there's no reversing this. I had no idea that there's actually an incredibly huge solution available to us. And it's going to take a lot of education. But so that movie, the first half of it is kind of doomsday-ish, but the second half is just like, wow, there really is light at the end of the tunnel. There's a silver lining. There's hope. And so I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Will you share, before we get into that, you haven't always been a farmer. So what were some of your careers before this?
Well, I graduated from WSU in '90 with an accounting degree. Immediately went to work for the state auditor's office right out of college, auditing cities, counties, school district, municipalities. We always laughed, and I think they still do. That was a job interview because you ended up transitioning over into one of those municipalities. I ended up choosing schools. Was a business manager at Manson School District for a year and a half, then transitioned down to Wenatchee to the North Central Educational Service District, where I was the assistant finance director. And then I came back to farm for 3 or 4 years. And because of the price of wheat at that time, needed to go back. And I left as the assistant and actually went back as the executive director of finance. And so I got a promotion for leaving. I don't think too many people get to claim that. And then I was the director of finance there for just under 8 years before I came back to farm in 2011. So yeah, financial background.
Got it. And then what did bring you back in 2011 to farming?
I grew up here. When it was all said and done, I was pretty much going to try to figure out how to come back in any way. And both my father and one of my uncles were at that point where they were ready to transition out. And so it was time to come back and take over the family farm, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, Douglas, we need you back on the farm. It's your turn."
Yeah, it's farm transition. There's millions and millions of books written on it. It's always interesting. Everybody has their own story on why they come back. Mine just was, I'm a farm boy.
Yeah, got it. So, and the reason we're talking to you today is because we're exploring this concept of regenerative agriculture. And tell us a little bit about what that is, because I'm imagining there's quite a few people who've never heard of it. I'd never heard of it. And so can you bring us up to date on that or inform us, please?
I would start probably by describing when I went no-till. So everybody acts like this is kind of new. And so in our circles, one of the jokes is are your farms not going to look like your father's or your grandfather's? It could look like your great-great-grandfather's. In that these principles have already, they've always been in place. But the best way to describe regenerative ag is really the principles that it's rooted in, and that would be minimizing soil disturbance, always having a growing root in your soil, soil armor, having that soil covered from all the elements, diversity of roots growing in the soil, and then livestock integration, the cycling of nutrients, and how that used to happen when the bison roamed. And then some of us have begun to add a sixth principle to that, and that would be reduce or eliminate synthetics, whether that be fertilizers or chemicals.
Got it.
And so that kind of, the definition, interestingly enough, I'm always amazed how in today's society we can find something to argue about. That definition is being argued daily. What is regenerative ag? Does it really mean anything? And so I always go back to those 5 or 6 principles, and that seems to kind of keep it fairly simple.
Yeah, it does. And some people heard you say no-till. Explain what that is for people who are not familiar with that.
Yeah, and so to compare and contrast, in this area, we're a fallow operation where we've got to rest the ground for a year to build up moisture. And so in that fallow period, we would till the ground probably anywhere from 4 to 6 times before we seeded, or to prepare for the seeding process. And now we just do everything in one pass. All our fertility and seeding is all done once a year. And then in this case, in our fallow period, we use chemicals to keep the weed pressure down. But it's going from probably the plow that everybody has in their mind when they think about a farmer, to we just do everything in one pass now. And with that
and the purpose of that, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but one of the main purposes of that is so we're keeping everything more intact, and we're not releasing all the carbon into the atmosphere. Is that accurate?
100% correct.
Yeah. Yep. And then when the crops come on, and part of the reason you're keeping a crop cover as much as possible throughout the year is so that it's releasing the good stuff into or capturing as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. And we're really, when you think of agriculture, we are the biggest sink in the world. And that, interestingly enough, I love the fact that you referenced kiss the ground. They couldn't have put it any more simple. We are the solution. I don't like to say this, but agriculture as a whole, no one farmer or anyone else, but we are also one of the larger problems in just because of tillage and the release of CO2. So.
Yeah, and that may, to me, it was shocking. Like I don't know where I'd been. I just never had exposure to this concept. So for me, it was really shocking. It might be shocking for people who are listening to this, like, oh, tilling is one of the main contributors to how this to our what's affecting the climate so dramatically.
Yeah.
And in that is also the solution, right? So in that we can reduce the tillage. And so you're talking about a one pass till and then covering it with crops. So you use the crop cover as well then, is that accurate?
Correct. The growing crop is providing that soil armor. We of course have minimized the disturbance, all of those things we talked about. In the case of, say, a wheat, a corn, or a soybean, that's a monoculture crop. And so we're missing the diversity for the soil biology. And that's kind of, to me, is the elephant in the room, is our soil biology has been starved of any diversity. Yeah. And I actually I love macaroni and cheese. That's just what I grew up on. And I liken it to, if I'd eaten macaroni and cheese all of my life, probably what kind of health would I be in? Well, my soil has had wheat all its life. And so it has seen no diversity. not by anything they've done wrong. That's just how we farmed, and
Right.
farmed quite well. So.
And so now you're rotating the crops in order to put different nutrients back into the soil.
Different biologies.
Different biologies.
The microbes, the fungi and the bacteria. Again, that's if we take care of the fungi and the bacteria, they will do the nutrient cycling. And one of those things that they do is pull all that CO2 into the ground where we need it. We need the carbon in the soil, and so that's why the solution is so simple and exciting at the same time. I can't put a dollar value on that carbon, and here's a system given to us by however your beliefs are, but we'll just say Mother Nature. Mother Nature gave me a free system.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to maximize that.
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it in terms like that, right? We've been given this system and we just need to utilize it effectively.
What is mankind's first thing? They've got to tinker with something, and they actually, mankind thinks we're smarter than Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And industrial ag is probably the most perfect example of us trying to outthink Mother Nature, when the system really, when you stop and think about it, the system is very simple, very, very simple. Harvest the sun, put the carbon in the ground, and feed the microbes. The microbes will feed your plant. And we have it in our heads that we need to feed the soil, to feed that plant. And industrial ag has that, in my opinion, kind of has that backwards. And people are starting to recognize that in the industrial ag model is fighting nature. And regenerative ag, to go back to that definition, really is just working with nature, working with the system that was given to us.
Yes, very well said. The next question, we're going to take a commercial break, but the next question I want to ask you, because this is going to be what's on everyone's mind, is, does it work? So stay with us. We'll be right back with talking more about regenerative agriculture with Douglas Poole. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. We're here with Douglas Poole today. He is a farmer up in the Mansfield area, and we're talking today about an exciting concept called regenerative farming. Although, as he pointed out earlier, it's been around for a long, long time. We have just moved away from it, and now the pendulum is swinging back the other way, a little bit at a time, but we're getting there. And so the next question I have for you, Douglas, is a lot of people listening to this might be asking, like, hey, why fix something that's not broken? I mean, we're getting crops all the time on a regular basis. People have been farming this way for also decades. So what's there to fix? Can you address that, please?
Yeah, and it's a hard question, just because you couldn't have asked it any better. What are we trying to fix? In the way we farm today, industrial ag is not a bad system at all. And in fact, amazing things are going on in that system. My problem with those systems is it requires me to write a check. Every time I turn around, I'm writing a check to fix a problem. And regenerative ag has actually gone into those problems and said, well, the problem is caused because we tilled, or we used a synthetic fertilizer, or we have monoculture crops. And it's that next level question that's being asked that takes you to that mindset of, okay, maybe everything we've done in the industrial agricultural revolution is the problem in trying to get away from that. And I mentioned earlier the talk about, what's the definition of regenerative ag and everything else. People have it and are excited to think that maybe the entire system could go to more of a regenerative ag system. But the thought process that we're going to feed the world with that just isn't there yet. And so that, I think, brings people again back to what are we trying to fix if we still have to feed all of those people? And for me, I look at my own system and think, man, it looks like there's a way to do this and me not to have to write a check. I also have fields that, it's very easy, especially up here where we're all glacial. I've got some soil that's only 16 to 20 inches deep. I'm not like the Palouse where it's 20 feet deep. And I've got fields that I've just had to quit farming. And so I look at my own fields, no one else's. I look at my own and say, wow, obviously the old model has got to change because we've farmed we farmed some of those fields down to nothing,
Mhm.
just because of weather and everything else. So that kind of a roundabout way, it's kind of a dicey thing because there's amazing farming going on today. No one gets up in the morning thinking I'm going to go out and destroy my ground. That's
Sure.
Farmers are amazing stewards of their ground. It's just the system that we've inherited over the last 60, 70 years that have kind of led us to believe, or led us to see that maybe some of this stuff could be reversed. And
Yeah.
there's a more natural way to do it. So
So let's get to that question that we asked ahead before the commercial. Does it work? What are you seeing with these regenerative ag practices?
well, I think first of all, I always tell everybody that comes to the ranch and wants to tour or discuss this. I grew up not seeing. We farm on a hill that I can see the town of Mansfield. I grew up, it was nothing 10 days this year in the summer to not see Mansfield because it was blowing. And so first and foremost, that's gone.
Oh, wow.
I North Douglas County and around the Mansfield area, you have to have hats off. Over 50% of this has gone no-till in the last 9 years.
Oh, wow.
So the younger generation has really jumped in, and I look around sometimes thinking, man, they're going to just blow by us. Those of us that are a little older, because they're so excited and they get it and they're embracing it. But that'd be the first and foremost. There just isn't dirt blowing all over the place anymore.
Right.
In the fields that
was part of the what happened in the Midwest, right? I mean, the Great Dust Bowl. I mean, again, I didn't realize that humans were the cause of the Great Dust Bowl, right? Which was just completely devastating.
it was, and even up to 10, 15 years ago, it was okay to have 10 days of a dust bowl, as opposed to, of course, those were years long. And again, practices have changed and we mitigated that. But I would tell you now, with the switch, just again, in this small little corner of the world, that you just don't see the dust blowing anymore. You don't see the erosion when and if we do get a rain event, the snow melt. You just don't see the runoff like you used to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're trying in a dry land system up here where we get 6 to 10 inches of rain a year. Every drop that we can maintain helps. And you see that water infiltration, which of course then plays out into better crops.
Got it. And so are you seeing better yield?
Yeah, I've got fields that just have kind of really have blown my mind. And it's just not one thing. It's not the no-till, it's not the diversity of crops, it's all of those together.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many analogies. The wheel and the spokes is probably one of the better ones that I can come up with.
Yeah.
The wheel doesn't work with one of those spokes missing, but how do you point out which spoke is the one that keeps the wheel together?
Sure.
And you really can't. We try different things each and every year. Some of them, the soil health principles will work anywhere in the world. It's just trying to figure out how we put them in our context here. And so we've had some issues, some things that didn't work. Maybe I kept the cattle out on a cover crop too long, or we kept them out in the field too long. Those are just things that we'll learn. We're not that far down this road, but I've got fields. I have one field that burnt, was in a fire in 2013. I've done nothing but screw that field up. And I finally just said, I'm going to press the reset button, and I grew a cover crop. And I changed, you can walk across that field, you can dig in it, you can do, it's just a complete 180. And that's kind of one of the things that we're doing on our ranches, is we're just acknowledging that it's time to stop and make the investment in the soil and in just get away from needing a cash crop that year. And
Gotcha.
That it's kind of one of the few ways that I can see to move the needle in a hurry. It's nothing for us to paint the barn. We want to paint the barn so it doesn't weather. We put brakes on our cars. We do all this maintenance and this investment in our assets, but I don't see where I've ever done that to my soil. And so that's what we're doing. And and you can see it change quickly. A lot of times they'll tell you it doesn't change for 20 years. We're seeing changes in a year.
Wow. What a great concept, in investing back into our soil. Right.
I tell everybody I'm the biggest plagiarist in the world. I don't have an original thought in my head, but I heard that somewhere at a conference. You may just have to stop and invest, and that's what we've done. I'm very fortunate. I've got amazing landlords that, once we talked about that concept, and really we use the analogy of painting the barn. They expect me to paint their barn and keep their barn standing up as a leasee. Well, why wouldn't we do that with our soil also? So.
Yeah, really good. Really good. Let me see here. Another question for you. Does regenerative farming require more or less work? And is it more or less expensive than traditional till-based farming?
I would tell you it's different work. A lot of my time is just researching. You mentioned I get up at 4, and that's where I do my reading in the morning and follow all my feeds, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, is all regenerative ag. And so it's a little different. And then we've become very data-based. And so soil tests, tissue tests, my yield data that I get from my combines is all downloaded, and we spend a lot of time analyzing that. Because every farmer works hard. This has led me to work differently with that, because we're not tilling, we're not running a lot of equipment. We've minimized the passes, and so there's time to do other research than to have that tractor always running.
Yeah.
With regard to the cost, that's probably one of the things that's probably the most prohibitive to thinking about the switch is the retooling to eliminate all that tillage equipment. The no-till drills are fairly expensive. And in the case right now, and I see my farm in a transition where I'm trying to get away from spraying in that fallow period and using a cow. But there's another barrier would be acknowledging that there's a transition. People get hung up on, well, I can't just stop doing what I'm doing. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just acknowledge there's a transition. I may have to spray chemicals for 5 to 6 years to get to the other end. Mm-hmm. And so it's a work different, but yeah, there's some significant capital expenditures that need to happen. And NRCS, our local NRCS office, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and then Foster Creek Conservation District up here in North Douglas County has been amazing, getting us resources to help with that retooling.
Yes.
And so it's been a convergence. In my own journey, each time I look back, someone will ask, well, how did you get here? Well, again, it's just like the spoke in the wheels. I can't point to any one thing, but I can go down a list, and it's like, oh, wow, the conservation district, they really took off and got going, and now I have all that assistance. Well, the NRCS had amazing staff and continues to have amazing staff. And we had family that went down this journey. We had friends. And so that each time you turn around, there's somebody else helping you along. Mm-hmm. I think that's what's made it fun is this group effort.
Yeah, it sounds like there's been a real collaboration.
It is.
Yeah. Let me see one more question here. I think we have got time for one more. Oh yeah. If others are hearing this and they're like, oh, I've been thinking about this, or this is new information to me, how can they find out more? I mean, can they get in contact with you, or are there, you just mentioned a couple of resources, obviously, but what's the best way to get started and further their information?
I've been asked this several times. I don't think I am where I am without the internet. I can't fathom, it's nothing for me to talk to a friend in Australia. Never met this person, but we have an ongoing relationship. And so the first thing I would do is get on Google. Yeah. Watch the movie. The fact that you watched that movie, I love the way that movie was put together. It was put together for anyone that's not part of agriculture to understand what's going on out here. But a couple of names I would throw out is Ray Archuleta, who is retired NRCS, and they call him Ray the Soil Guy. I tell everybody he's the cheerleader of the movement. Gabe Brown is another person we follow. If you were just to Google those two names, and then I would encourage everybody to watch the movie. That movie brought a tear to my wife and I's eyes, just
Mm.
because it was validating that, this journey, and it's a journey. I really believe in my own farm. If some of these things that I'm shooting for, I have a hard time believing, but I have my hope that I'll ever see it. That's fine. My son will see it, and his children will see it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's a gift. It's a gift to the future generations for sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, wholeheartedly, 100%.
Yeah. Very good. Well, that's all the time we've got today. First of all, I just want to acknowledge you for being on the journey that you're on and making a difference. You're part of the solution, which is extremely exciting. And so thank you for what you do. And thank you for bringing this information to us today.
No, thank you for having the opportunity to, you can tell we love what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Take care.
All
All
right.
right. And now you know what it's time to do. It's time to get out there. It's time to be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You do have something to offer this world, and I believe in you.